It's opening night for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're here to get you set for Buds Habs clash for Game 1 of 82 tonight, plus our Maple Leaf over-unders projections for the 2024-25 season. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's game day, Dave. Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Got a game coming up down at Scotiabank Arena on Saturday. Sidney Crosby's in the building. You want to grab tickets? Get them on Gametime. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $20 off your first purchase. What's up, Dave? How we feeling on a Wednesday? How we feeling on opening night for your Toronto Maple Leafs?
Oh, we're cooking. We're cooking. Cannot wait. This is... I always like the first game. Always a lot of drama between these two teams. I was at the home opener last year, the first game last year. So, do I want a repeat of what happened last year? It was exciting, a lot of goals, but probably not the type of game I'd want to see the Leafs play.
What type of game do you think we see tonight? Like, is it going to be like last year? It was, 6-5 in overtime was the final last season. A hat trick from Austin Matthews, if I'm not mistaken. That was a nice way to start off the year. That was a quick start to 69 goals, but I feel like that's not going to be the case in this one. I do get the sense it'll be a bit of a tighter game. Not that, the Leafs, shouldn't win. They should absolutely get the victory. But I don't see it being a back and forth, high scoring affair. I think, it could settle in a nice little 4-2 victory for the Buds or something like that.
Yeah, I think that when you saw the first game, but the Leafs played in the preseason with all the stars, didn't resemble anything of what Craig Berube wanted. But as the preseason went along, you started to see a little bit more. So I look at that Detroit game that they played on Saturday night. Yeah. Probably a little closer to that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like a 3-2, 4-2 sort of deal is where I'm kind of leaning for this team.
Yeah, should be a good game, though. Obviously, Leafs, Habs, they're always tight games regardless. It's a rivalry game, and, Montreal, they always want to play well, especially they're opening up, the building, the season opener, home opener at the Bell Center. So it's going to be a big-time game for them. They'll be ready to go. But in general, like we were talking about how important it is for the Maple Leafs to start off on a good note, and getting a win against the Habs would obviously be step one to doing that. It's been a theme over the last few years that this team have gotten off to some really slow starts in the month of October. I went and I did the math and I looked back on the records in the last 5 years for the Maple Leafs. So it's not just 1 year, two, like we're talking 5 years back to Mike Babcock here. The Maple Leafs have won, Dave, just 19 of 42 games in the month of October. A record of 19, 16, and 7 with a points percentage of .535 dating back to the 1920 season, the year Mike Babcock got fired. Not great. Their Octobers have not been great. They've gotten off to some pretty slow, junky starts. I think with Berube in tow, like him and the team, the group, the organization, they're going to want to hit the ground running with a couple of nice wins, and starting off in Montreal will go a long way.
Yeah, no, it would. And that's, I think, when you look at where this team has failed to really capitalize on trying to win the Atlantic, it's that they haven't gone off to the best starts, and they're always kind of playing catch up, right? And there's always like a period where they go on this crazy run and they give us hope that maybe they'll challenge for the division. Then it doesn't happen because you're going behind the eight ball a little bit. So yeah, I'm hoping that this year will be different in that regard.
Slow starts and playing down to their opponents. Those have been two things that have plagued this team over the last few years, leaving points on the board, especially early on in the season, that has definitely precluded this squad from winning a division title. If they can change those habits and start winning those games that they should, I mean, you should beat the Habs, you should beat the Sabres, you should be able to beat, the Anaheims, the Columbuses of the world, and pick up those much needed 2 points in those games. Haven't done that as much the last few seasons. Hopefully this year under Berube they can get that going. I was just quickly taking a look. The Maple Leafs have 11 games in the month of October this year. We're gonna do a full over under segment in a little bit, in about 15 or so minutes. But really quickly, a little bonus one to start things off, give you a little taste of what's to come in a little bit on the show. 11 games, over under 5.5 wins.
I'll go over.
Okay. All right. So you believe that they will get off to a good start this season.
I just like I think they'll have a good chance to really have some balance, especially if they go with a bit of a tandem to start. I think Stolars can net them a few more wins than past goalie tandems as well.
Yeah.
So I think goaltending and defense, if they get off to a good start, that's going to be crucial for them.
So in the last 5 years, they have the only one time have they gone over 5.5 wins in October. And that year they had 14 games in that month. So they had 3 more games to get there. Prior to that, in 23-24, they were 5-3-1, and then 4-4-2 in 22-23, and then 4-4-1 in 2021-22. No games in October, though, in 2020-2021 due to COVID, obviously. And then Mike Babcock, that year, they won 6 games in October through 14. They went 6-5-3. So hopefully October is a much better month for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they can get off to a winning start tonight, go 1-0, and then focus on 2-0 and 3-0 and take it one game at a time. I'm sure that's what Craig Berube will be preaching to the group tonight and every game moving forward. Curious, Dave, what are a couple storylines you're looking forward to watching tonight, though?
Well, when I look at the roster that they have going on, the blue line is going to be the big one for me. How does it all kind of gel together? So that'd be kind of the first one. Special teams. Is this the year that the special teams has a little bit of consistency right from the start of the year? Like usually the power play gets off to a good start, but the penalty kill is like putrid, right? There's not that balance between the two units. And what do the Stars have, for the first game? Matthews got a hat trick last year, so he's capable of it.
High bar.
It is a high bar for sure.
I think those are, 3 things. The special teams, the penalty kill more specifically, they played well in the preseason. Can they carry it over into the regular season? And again, they're not playing, a team that is expected to compete for a cup or really even compete for the playoffs. So you would expect for them to perform well, win this game easily. But you never know when it comes to A, the Maple Leafs, and B, the Canadiens in night one. It's always a difficult game to kind of project, especially when you got a new coach. You're not exactly sure what to expect fully now that the real stuff has begun. We were talking about it yesterday. Max Pacioretty in the lineup and going to Montreal, back into the Bell Center, wearing a Leafs jersey. What do you think the reception is going to be from Montreal?
I think they're gonna boo him. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be that bad to start, but I think I mean they're how can they cheer for a player in a Leafs jersey?
I don't think they're going to cheer. Is it possible?
I don't think they're going to mercifully boo him though. Like Matthews is going to get his fair share. Yes. Marner is going to get his fair share.
Yeah,
but I don't think like they're going to mercifully boo him. But I don't think they're going to. They might give a little cheer, like one of those like what's the best way to put it? They're not going to
Could it be indifferent? Like, I mean, is it possible that it's just, it's Pacioretty, cool. Like, no one really has any ill will. Like, it's not as though he spurned Montreal to go to Toronto, right? It's not like Tavares, what happened on the island. That you could understand.
Yeah.
Pacioretty hasn't been in Montreal for like 5 years, and even then,
Yeah.
they traded him. Like, so he's been on 3 different teams since. Like, I don't know if there's gonna be that much hatred towards him. I don't know if we get the boo birds out there, to be quite honest with you. I think
Yeah.
they'll actually. I think like if when his name, if he, I don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup. Probably not. But if at any point Pacioretty gets, well, I'm sure that do they do. I'm trying to remember if they do the away team. I can't remember, but if his name ever pops up, I'm sure they'll give him a little cheer. I don't think the Boo Birds are going to come out here. The next question I have for tonight, though, and then we'll get to we'll take a look at what the roster is going to look like. But it sounds like Ryan Reeves is going to play based on the practice lines the last couple of days, and we were kind of talking about it the last week or so. Will there be retribution for the Arbor Jackeye attack on Cedric Pare? Do you see fireworks happening tonight? So I guess we'll throw another over under at you. Over under half a fight tonight.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be a fight over.
Yeah.
Like I think Ryan Reeves is not going to let stuff like that slide, in my opinion.
Well, it's kind of what he's here for. He's not going to score many goals, that's for sure. So, he's here to protect and set a tone, and he can do that right away on night one. I think overall, too, like if we look at a storyline for tonight, I'm just excited to see if it feels different, how it feels different, under Craig Berube after 5 years of Sheldon Keefe. So going to be a fun game tonight. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back, take a look at the lineups on both sides of the ice, the Montreal Canadiens and your Toronto Maple Leafs. And then we've got our over-unders predictions. It's a yearly tradition we do here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. I've got some team over-unders, some individual over-unders, and we'll see what we come up with and see what we cook up for those. So that's coming up a little bit later on. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Gametime Picks curates and makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy events, theater. They've got all-in pricing. They've got seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat right in the app before you buy it. They've got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and David Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, all season long, talking about your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs, covering things from start to finish. And it's game 1 of 82 and hopefully a lot more after that going down tonight. You can find the podcast wherever you get a podcast. Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, also up on YouTube. All right, Dave, let's look at the Toronto Maple Leafs projected starting lineup for tonight's game against Les Habitants. I think it's a pretty good squad. I think we look at Toronto and you see this is a group that looks like they should be able to win this game, all things considered. So starting out with the forward group, you've got Matthew Nyes skating with Matthews and Marner. You've got Max Domi with Tavares and Nylander. You've got Pacioretty with Holmberg and Robertson. You've got Steven Lawrence /Lawrence, still got to figure that one out, with Kampf and Ryan Reeves. Dave, what's the blue line looking like?
Well, you got Morgan Riley paired with Chris Tanev, the big signing from the summer. You have Oliver Ekman-Larsson, another big signing from the summer with Jake McCabe, Simo Benoit. We're just missing the T there.
Benoit. Apparently.
Yeah,
it's silent, right? Silent and invisible, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And Connor Timmins will be This is the first time he'll be in the Leafs opening night lineups
Yeah.
since coming
Yeah.
to Toronto. So that's exciting for him.
Yep. And with Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Wall as the goaltenders. And funny enough, I don't know if you caught what the coach had to say, Berube.
Oh, I caught it.
Um, yeah, on Tuesday when asked what went into starting to selecting Joseph Woll as your starter, basically came out and said, "I don't remember anointing a starter for night one. Did I say something?" And Masters was like, "Oh, I guess I assumed." And he's like, "Nah, we'll find out tomorrow." So we don't have the exact starter, but I'd imagine it's going to be Joseph Wall, right? Night one, he's the guy you paid long term to be your guy, drafted, developed. He was here last year. If he's healthy, right? Let's hope that there's no back issue between
Mhm.
now and puck drop. It's got to be Joey Wall, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's the guy, right? The way everything's been talking about, and like, do you really want the headline or the all the buzz for night one to be about how Joseph Woll didn't get the opening night start, right?
You think that it'd be like Spezza 2.0? I don't know,
No.
because you can make the argument though, like
Like
who's the
Stolarz
better
is good. He
well,
was
hold on.
good during preseason.
Who's the better goalie between the two, in your opinion?
I still think it's Joseph Woll has the bit higher ceiling between the two for sure.
Agreed. So you could make the argument. I'm not, but I'm saying someone could. Well, let's save Wool for night two, the back to back against the better team with the New Jersey Devils on Thursday. So we can go Stolarz night one, and then we'll get Wool playing the Devils, give us a better chance on Thursday. That could be, a discussion in the coaches' room, but ultimately, I would just say let's just get it rocking and rolling right from night one. Let's just go Wall, and then we'll roll the dice with Stolarz in game two against Jersey.
Well, that's it, right? Like it's easier to kind of make those decisions when you have that other game coming up, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry too much about, if you play one today, and again, that's the benefit of this tandem. They're going to be playing a lot, I think. Like Stolarz is not going to play 25 games. He is going to get his fair share of games this year. So,
Well, that
play him
might
out.
come up. That might come up a little bit in the over under segment. So you hold your horses with that thought process. Bobby McMahon, Timothy Liljegren, and Phil Myers going to be sitting up in the press box as healthy scratches, we believe. Again, these are projections, but based on the practice lines over the last couple of days, that's how it shakes out, barring any last-minute injuries. All right, let's take a look at the Montreal Canadiens lineup and what we got cooking for the Habs here, Dave. Let's grab that if we can. Because I think that's, it doesn't look all that different from what it's looked like in the last couple of years. It's pretty much going to be a very similar lineup. You've got Cole Caulfield with Nick Suzuki and Uri Slavkovsky. You've got Newhook with Doc and Armia. You've got Alex Barboulay, who I totally forgot was on Montreal, with Dvorak and the Leaf Killer, Josh Anderson. You got Gallagher on the fourth line with Jake Evans and Emil Heineman. And defensively, Dave, what do we got?
Well, you got Mike Matheson with Caden Gooley. You have Lane Hudson with Savard. And then you have the hated Arbor Jack guy with Justin Perrin. And then you got Montembeau starting with Caden Primo as the backup.
I'm kind of excited to watch Hudson play tonight. I liked
They
him as a
really like him
prospect.
this year.
Yeah, like he's a really entertaining player, like in the ilk of those Quinn Hughes type of players, right? Bit small, undersized, but he could skate well and he's got really good vision. I hope he doesn't, decimate the Leafs, obviously, but he is someone who I'm excited to kind of see what he looks like. And I'm also kind of intrigued by what we'll get out of Slavkovsky. He really had a great back half of last year, and it seems like he's poised to take another big step. So those two players, I guess, would kind of be the two players to watch for me tonight from a Montreal perspective. Anyone catch your eye?
Caden Gooley, they curious to see. He signed a new deal in the offseason, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, he got a 6-year deal this offseason. So like they're starting to do the what other teams are doing, like locking these guys up early before they have their big breakout, as you say.
Yeah.
And also Kirby Doc, because the guy has not played a lot, right? He's dealt like I think
He's got to stay healthy. That guy.
he must be one of the more unlucky players I've ever seen. At any point in the NHL, right?
He's got worse luck than Nicky Bobby.
Like he played 2 games last year.
Yeah.
He played 58 the year before, 70. He his career high 70, and then I remember one point 18 with the Blackhawks. I'm just looking at he's a player that when he plays, he's pretty good. Just hasn't been playing.
Yeah. The Habs need that guy to stay healthy. All right, Dave. Keys to the game. Let's pull up the keys to the game slide. And we'll take this from a Maple Leafs perspective. So, what are the keys to the game for the Toronto Maple Leafs to beat the Montreal Canadiens? Well, how about this? Let's not let Josh Anderson cook. I mean, this guy's been unbelievable. Seems to score every single time the Maple Leafs and Habs play, doesn't he? I mean, limiting this guy will be step one to hopefully winning the game.
Yeah, I don't want to. I do not want to see Josh Anderson getting that Habs crowd going, because it always happens. It's always annoying, and it's like you watch Josh Anderson away from any game against the Leafs versus when he plays Leafs, and it's like so night and day. So and look, I understand Josh Anderson is not a bad player. It's just he becomes Wayne Gretzky when he plays against Leafs.
Yeah.
I just don't like it, and I get annoyed by it.
Yeah, literally, it's insane how he just continues to just bury the Maple Leafs. It's wild. 13 goals in his career against the Maple Leafs. Feels like it's been a lot more than that, to be honest with you, when it comes to Josh Anderson. Let me see what his last 10 games are actually versus Maple Leafs. Last 10 games, because I feel like he just has really, really crushed. Yeah, 7 points, 5 goals in his last 10 games against the Leafs. So yeah, limit that guy, and you should be in a much better situation throughout the year. All right, strong start. We talked about it. This team, they got to start on time. Start on time. Win the first period, especially on the road. It's going to be a ruckus crowd in Montreal. Take the crowd out of it early. Try and score a goal. Limit that first 5-minute wave where Montreal is going to be buzzing, and then from there you can kind of play your game and settle into it. But they got to get off to a good start. Can't let Montreal take over and take advantage early on.
No, and that's something again the Leafs have been guilty of, against teams that they should beat. They allow the opponent to stay in games, and sometimes they're having to chase the game, do more than they need to to win the game, right? So hopefully, yeah, I'd like to see, especially the top line, come out with a pronounced, this is how we're gonna play. This is what you're gonna have to deal with us all
Dictate
night
the game.
long.
Yeah, dictate the game right from the get-go. And a way to dictate the game in a Craig Berube way, they got to play that north-south game, and they got to play physical, right? They got to cycle the puck. They got to be hard in on the forecheck, on the back check. I think that's a way to beat this Montreal team. They're not a big team, and on the blue line, they're quite inexperienced. Yes, Gooley played some games last year. Jack played some games last year, but you got Hudson, who's brand new. They've got another young Morgan Barron or Justin Barron has, very young defenseman in this league who hasn't played many NHL games. So you play physical on them, force them into mistakes, and then capitalize. And, I think that the Leafs built their team this year to be able to play that style of game. So I'd like to see it right from the get-go.
Yeah, that's the big one, right? Is you should not have to hear a team say, well, the best way to beat the Leafs is to outwork them. We always hear that, right?
Yep.
And I don't think that's what the Leafs want to hear anymore either.
Nope. They want to hear, man, that was a dogfight of a game. That's what you want to hear at the end. You want to hear the trainers at the end asking for more ice for the ice bags because that was a tough and physical game. That's what the Maple Leafs want to be going forward. All right, Dave, I'm excited. Let's hope they can get the dub. You got a final prediction on tonight's game?
Yeah, I'll go 4-2 Leafs.
I already said 4-2 earlier, so we're both on the 4-2 train. 4-2 empty netter or just 4-2?
4-2 no empty netter.
Okay. All right. I like it. Matthew scores tonight, obviously.
Absolutely.
Patches?
I would love a Pacioretty goal.
I think Patches scores tonight. I think we get one out of Pacioretty.
Austin Matthews, I always have to remember to look back, but Austin Matthews on opening night is on like some ridiculous
Crush. Yeah. He
streak.
crushes opening night. Like I have to do my best bets on covers.com. I do my Leafs best bets every game. Austin Matthews to score an anytime goal is my best bet because that's all he does on opening night is score goals. I mean, the guy obviously opening night of his career, what did he score? 4. He had a hat trick last year. The guy's just a beast on opening night. He just absolutely obliterates dudes. I saw someone wrote a piece about that earlier today, and I have maybe probably could find that the exact number of how many goals he has on opening night, but it's a lot. It is a lot of goals. All right. Why don't we take another break and we'll come back and let's get to our over unders predictions for the Maple Leafs for the 24-25 season. Maybe we'll toss in an Austin Matthews goal prop in there at some point. I would imagine it'll come up. That's next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NHL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's North America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your live bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. I like Austin Matthews, anytime goal tonight. That's my prop bet. That's my best bet. You can make that wager over on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, the official sports book of the Locked On Network. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues on opening night with the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Montreal Canadiens, and we're both hoping for a dub. We think that it's going to be a victorious night, and we'll be having a Victory Thursday show tomorrow, Dave. So hopefully that does happen. All right, we're going to do the Maple Leafs over/under season predictions. We do this every year. We have a lot of fun doing it, and then we revisit at the end of the season. How did we do with our predictions? So we've got some team predictions. Then we've got some individual player predictions as well when it comes to over and unders. So let's start things off with the team, okay? Very simple. And this one is actually a wager that is available currently on FanDuel. 101.5 points. 101.5. Over or under, Dave?
I'm over. I think that's a reasonable number. You look at the past few years, what been able to get, and I don't see how that's not a possibility. Personally, like it's just the trend is in the right direction. Other than injury,
it could happen. It could. Things could go very, very wrong. Get injuries. The goaltending could fall apart. It could happen.
It could happen, but I just think that when you have this collection of talent, things have to go incredibly wrong. And like you look at a lot of people who are projecting, if you look at Dom's projections for the Athletic, if you look at just anyone doing any sort of season projections, they got the Leafs pretty high up there. I think Dom, only Edmonton had more points in his model for the regular season.
Yeah, I think Toronto though also like his model very much it favors Toronto, and I remember even last year, pretty sure he had the Leafs with the most points also projected. So they're the models, they're okay. I'm with you though. I do think that he goes over 101.5. 3 straight years have been above that, and the year before that, I think they were on pace to beat that. But they only played 56 games that year. But yes, I would take the over on 101.5 points for your Toronto Maple Leafs this season. All right. Speaking of a good way to win games to stop pucks, Dave. Team save percentage over under 900.
Oh, I'm going over.
Okay. 900 is like league average. At this
900 league average, I think they're going to be at worst in like the 905, 908 range. Like at worst, like if Joseph Woll struggles, I just think Stolarz, he's usually pretty solid and not his save percentage, especially last year. I know Florida is not Toronto, but I think that these two goalies, they'll like the volume of shots, right? And
Mhm.
hopefully with this new system with Berube, give the goalies a little more of a chance, right?
Yeah. That was where I was gonna go. Guys blocking shots, whether it's Chris Tanev, OEL. You've beefed up the third pair now with Benoit in your third pair. I just think defensively they're a lot deeper and stronger, and yeah, should be able to help out the goalie. They want to play with good structure. So I'm with you. Last year was an absolute mess. I mean, there was points where Samsonov just like couldn't put equipment on without letting in a goal, and they finished with an 893. I can see him being exponentially better than that. So I think, yes, over 900 for sure. We'll stick with the goalies really quickly. Number of goalies used this season, 3.5. Over, under.
Oh,
They
three
only
and a
used
half.
they only used 3 last year,
Yeah, that's
surprisingly.
why I don't think they'll use more than three. Like at worst, maybe Matt Murray gets into a game of some if there is an injury down no at some point. I
If
don't think it's gonna be like where you see like Hildeby get in. I don't think if it gets to that point, something seriously went wrong. But like, yeah, I know Joseph Wall. We have the concerns about his injuries, the
Yep.
last few years. But I I think they're gonna be fine this year. That they're not gonna be going through like cycling goalies like crazy. Now,
I'm
if
gonna
I say that now and it happens, please do not blame me. I am not going to be the jinx.
Yeah,
Okay.
you jinxed it for sure. I'm taking the over on it though. We're gonna differ here. I'm going to take the over. I think that we definitely will see Matt Murray at some point get factored in here. One of those two are gonna go down to injury. Like Joseph Wall and Stolars have dealt with injuries their entire careers. Neither of them have, really a clean bill of health. So I think we'll see, both of them at some point miss some time. And then Matt Murray's not necessarily a clean bill of health either. And it's possible that Hildeby could outplay Murray at some point and become the call up. So maybe, Murray gets the call up at one point, but then Hildeby does later on in the season. I think we see all 4 goalies get at least one game this year. I think we're going over. All right. Number of fights this season, 24.5.
Oh,
There were 25 fights last year
I'm
for
going.
the Maple Leafs, which was surprising. I didn't realize they fought that much, to be honest with you.
I'm going to go under. Yeah, Reeves will fight. I don't know if really who else. Like Jake McCabe might fight a little. I don't think like they
Cave's
have as many.
tough.
Yeah, like they'll. I just don't think they're going to be fighting as much this year, in my opinion.
I'm going to take the over. Not much further over, but
Mhm.
Dave, they had 6 fights in the preseason. Like, I,
They
I
did.
think I think there's guys out here that might want to, show Craig Berube that they're a little tougher than maybe he thinks. But and you mentioned Reeves, McCabe, Domi can fight.
Yeah, I
Domi's
forgot Domi when I said that, but there's no Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi would drop the
No,
gloves.
he didn't. I think he fought maybe like once or twice last year. He was more of like a Marchand. Like he didn't fight
Yeah, but
often.
he
He was
did
like a
drop the gloves.
bunting.
Well,
Benoit can fight. I think
mm,
Nyes. If Nyes is a big dude, I think if someone's messing around with Austin or Marner, like I think Nyes is the guy who'd be willing to go in and grab a guy out of a scrum and start throwing. I think Nyes. I think Nyes will get into a few fights this year. I do. He's kind of my dark horse for why it goes over. I think that's like an unsuspecting guy that'll toss it around. Pontus Holmberg got into a fight in the preseason. Can we see
I am not.
Pontus
I
get?
am definitely not expecting that to be a regular occurrence for Pontus Holmberg.
No.
I have more of a thought that maybe Ryan Reeves' lessons with Philip Myers will lead to more fights
Yep.
than Pontus Holmberg.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine that would be the case. All right, last one that's team based before getting to the individuals. Number of trades between now and the 3 p.m. NHL trade deadline. Over under 4.5.
Ooh, I'm gonna say over because I think they're gonna be making a trade within like the first month at least.
Mm,
But when you look at the whole you got Yarncrook on LTIR. Eventually, he's going to come back. Do they make a trade there? Timothy Liljegren. That's That's like I don't know how long you're going to be wanting to keep him in the press box, right? Like those are teams are going to be calling on guys, and I think they're going to be more willing to make moves because they also some of these guys they could trade and just get some draft capital because they don't have much. Now that may hamper them in making some trades, but I mean, you look how many trades they made last year at the trade deadline. You go and get Edmondson, you go get Lyubushkin. You could see them go and add a little bit of maybe depth at center if that's something that they feel like they need to do, and maybe even just some minor deals, right? Like I count all of them. I don't just think like the NHL roster specifically.
Yes.
So I do think that 4.5 is I would take the over on that. But not by much. Like I'm not saying they're gonna make.
I mean that'd be a lot. If you get into 6-7 trades, that's a lot. So the thing that's like this is a good number because I think it's gonna be like 4 or 5. I think that's 4 or 5 trades, and the reason why I'm almost tipping toward over is because of what you brought up. There could be a possibility where the numbers game where the team, whether it's cap wise or roster wise, where there's more than 23 guys who are capable of being NHLers, they might have to move on from one of those guys once this team gets healthy. And if that happens, then that's just like an extra trade or two that we could see happen in the first couple of months of the season. And then at that point, it's okay. What else do we see them do in terms of trades? At that point, you only need like 3 more, but by the trade deadline. So I'm going to say over, but I'm like 5. Like that's literally, it's like that line was so perfect. I'm going to go with 5. All right. Individual stats. Here we go, buddy. We'll start up at the tippy top with the captain. Austin Matthews, over under 55.5 goals. You can actually bet on this over on FanDuel.
Well, I'm going to go the over because I think he gets to 60. I know that people are like, maybe he'll have a bit of a decrease from last year. He had 69 last year.
Yes.
Like,
60 would be a decrease.
So 60 would be a decrease. He's going to be a guy out in the power that's going to power play and things like that. Mitch Marner is also in a I want to prove myself year.
Yep.
I think that if that's a combination that stays together all year long, I don't know how the 60's not in the cards for Matthews.
Yeah, I'm with you. I completely agree. Totally in the cards. I think he needs 52 goals, if I'm not mistaken, to surpass Sundin for all-time Maple Leafs goal scoring. So for sure, he's passing Sundin this year. So I think 53 is happening, 52, 53. I'll take the over 55.5. I think he's in and around 60. I don't think he's getting to 69, 70. That seems like it'll be a little rich, but 55.5. Yeah, I think 56 plus goals for sure for Austin Matthews, and probably another Rocket Richard. His running mate, Mitch Marner. FanDuel has his point total currently at 91.5. Where are you at with that? Over or under?
I'll go over, but the only reason why I say over is the only thing that's going to keep him from that is injuries, right? The only way he doesn't get to 90 is injuries.
Okay, the way okay. I'm 100% with you. Like I'm smashing the over on.
That's actually low for him in my opinion.
Very low. So I would definitely go and put the over because I think he had like 88 or 89 points last year and missed 20 games. So again, health is definitely key here. But look, Mitch Marner's been pressing up on 100 for years now. I think there's a possibility this could be the year that he gets it, especially with a contract on the line. It's a contract year. Absolutely, he's going to be blowing past 91.5. I'm taking the over there. Willie, 89.5 points. Over under.
I'll go over. He was doing pretty good. I thought he was going to get to 100 last year.
Yeah, he was on pace. It was looking pretty good at one point. I think he was on pace like 120 points last year. One point.
At one point.
I really slowed down. Had 98 last year.
I think like 91, 92 for him is, I think, reasonable.
I'm gonna actually take the under on this one. I am, and here's the reasoning. He spent a lot of time last year with Austin Matthews. Like surprisingly, Nylander ended up with a lot of time. I don't think that's going to be the case this season. I think that Marner and Matthews will get a bulk of the run. I don't see, times also where Sheldon Keefe would just chuck Nylander out there late in the game and in certain situations and load up a top line. I don't know if Berube is keen to do that as much. Again, something else we have to learn about the new coach if he's willing to do those things. But that allowed Nylander to put up some more points. So I'm going to go under and just slightly. I think that he'll be over a point per game, but I don't know if he cracks the 90-point mark. So I'll take the under. Matthew Nyes. We both believe it's going to be a big season for him, but how big of a season for Matthew Nyes? He scored 15 goals last year. We're setting the over-under total for him this year at 24.5.
I'm going to go under because I think it'll be like 24. Like he like I think, okay, can he get to 25? He could definitely get to 25 if he's in the top 6 all year. But I'm just gonna go slightly under because he's not gonna get power play time, and like that's a lot of goals for have to score at 5-on-5.
Not gonna get power play time, and Austin Matthews will probably gobble up a lot of the 5-on-5 goals on that line too, right? So there's a couple of things that go against Nyes getting to 25 plus. But I think he's good, man. Like I think he's gonna do it. I do believe he's gonna do it. I think like that's a good number. I think he'll score mid to high 20s, 25, 26, maybe 27 goals this year. And I think, at some point, if there's an injury or if that power play is not clicking, he's probably the guy who's going to move up, right? Like if Tavares, for whatever reason, seems to be, a step behind this year or starts to slow down, I think Nyes could easily move up and be kind of on that first unit power play. So I'm going to go over. I'm going to take the over. I think he's a 25 plus goal scorer this season. Max Pacioretty, 14.5 goals.
I don't even remember what he got in his last.
He got 4 goals last year.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think of like the last time he was like relatively healthy.
It's been a couple of years. I think it's been three years since he's had like a decent season. He had 19 goals, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
I'll go over. I think he can get like 15, 16 goals in that role.
How many games does he play? Is he an every night guy for you?
No. I ain't gonna have to manage him a bit.
I don't either, and that's where I am a bit concerned with him scoring more than 15 goals. I think that's a good number, like in and around there. But like I could see him finishing with 12, 13, and he only ends up playing 13 minutes a night, no power play time. Doesn't play every night also, right? So I could see him ending with like, I don't know, 60 games played and only 13 goals in 16 games. I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
Nicky Bobby, our boy, the MVP of preseason, 49.5 games played with the Maple Leafs this year.
I'm going to go over. I think they really want him to work with him. And like I think he's in the right headspace. He's got the confidence that he's never really had. And he's starting the year with the team too. That's like, right. It's almost like he's got to do something. It's got to go bad for him to lose his spot in the lineup. And I think what I saw from him in preseason, this is a new version of Nick Robertson.
So here's the one thing that I feel like you're not taking into account when it comes to Nick Robertson. There's 2 things actually, and not that you're not taking into account, but I do just want to bring them up really quickly. One, the possibility of a trade at some point is still very much there. I know he played well, but a possibility of a trade still very much there. And more importantly, you talk about Joseph Woll dealing with injuries throughout his career. Nick Robertson has been extremely unlucky. Nick Robertson has been Kirby Dach level unlucky throughout his career. Last year, he stayed healthy. the entire season and only played 56 games. But before that, his career high was 15 games in the NHL. So I'm going to take the under because I think that there's just, a few factors going against him. A, could get traded. B, could lose a spot in the lineup if he underperforms. And, C, I think that there's a chance that he also could get injured at some point because that's just been what's happened throughout his career for Nicky Bobby. So I'm actually going to take the under at 49.5 games with the Maple Leafs specifically. Last one for you here, Dave. Go to the goalie. Joseph Woll, games played, over under 41.5. Does he start more than half of the games for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year?
I'm going to go under. I think he's going to get to around the 39-40 mark, but I do wonder if something pops up and that keeps him out a couple of games, right? I
So
do
it's injury
think,
related.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be play related. I don't. And like Matt Murray will eventually, you look how I don't know how many games they have him as the over under for that, but like Stolars can get
Matt
about
Murray's on FanDuel's radar for over-unders. I don't think they got a betting market for that, Dave.
Yeah, so like
half a game would probably be the over-under.
I do like I would love for him to be a guy that gets to that 45 games played mark, 48. That's where I would like if he's healthy. That's where I think I see it, but I just think that something can pop up for him, and it won't be his fault either. At this rate, it hasn't really ever been.
Well, yeah.
That Ottawa game last year where where the ankle happened.
Yeah.
That guy was under siege the entire game, and I blame the Leafs for not.
Sure, but I mean, it's also his body failing him. Like, that's his fault. Like, I mean, it's not his fault, but like, it's his body that's failed him. You know what I mean? Like, that just kind of, it's unfortunate, but is what it is. I'm going to be optimistic for the first time in this podcast. I'm going to take the over for Joseph Woll.
You have always never been the big on he'll stay healthy, so this is surprising for me to hear.
I know. But you know what? Like, just thinking back to Brad Treliving, how he described Joseph Woll's injuries and said, like, they're kind of just freak things, and they're not necessarily injuries that are piling up on, like, one thing. It's not like it's a nagging knee injury every year or a nagging back injury every year. Like, it's just different things, and it's just, like, a tweak here and there. And he just said it's more unlucky than anything as opposed to him being injury prone. So maybe the luck swings much like it did for Robertson last year. He stayed fully healthy. Maybe we'll see the same out of Joe Woll. And if that happens, I think he for sure is the starter that gets into 45, 46, 47 games. I think that's what the Maple Leafs want. For him to play 45 and for Stolars to get into 35 and, maybe Murray gets in a couple at some point, but that's probably what would be the preference for the Maple Leafs. And I'll be optimistic. I think he stays healthy. I'll go over 41.5 games. So there it is. This year's over-under segment for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Our predictions. We will revisit these at the end of the year, Dave. We'll revisit them in the summer when we there's not much going on. we've got podcast content to come up with. We'll revisit the over-unders and see how we did. And it's always fun because we usually look like idiots in those podcasts. So lots of fun. Let us know in the comments section down below. Reach out to us on Twitter. Let us know if you agree, disagree on any, and you could have played along as well. And that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow to break down and recap Game 1 of the year. Leafs, Habs, 7 o'clock tonight on Sportsnet. We will be back to recap it tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.